But today we're going to be going over some kind of key ideas or rules for comic books and things to keep in mind as you are starting to create your own. We're going to be going over kind of the way that line quality and tone, which how you can use lines to create tone or create feeling, as well as like layout and composition, and how to go between different pictures and have things still make sense. One of the things that we saw at the end of the reading last week was we saw that it's very difficult, even for professionals, to get kind of the image order or the image layout correct so that people can see it and understand what they're supposed to read next. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and navigate over to 3.3 and open this up. And then as I'm reading this off, just fill it in with me as you go, and then hit submit at the end of it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do a practice submission. You guys are going to do your real one. And these are the blanks that we're going to be filling in, okay? The first kind of concept that we want to look at and we want to talk about is the word juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is the idea that putting things next to each other creates some kind of connection. And we kind of saw that a little bit with our bonus page last week, where we had kind of totally unrelated pictures right next to each other. And while they don't make sense, they do kind of create an association within the mind of the people who see it, because it's like, oh, why did they put this wooden spoon next to this guy in the funny hat? Maybe this is his magic wand and he's gonna, then your audience members start kind of guessing or making up their own stories or reasons why you put these two pictures together. So that's called juxtaposition, putting things next to each other. So the comic rules note says juxtaposition, to place images close together or side by side, especially for comparison or contrast. So things either being compared or being very different. So we have a little bit of a video from a very famous filmmaker who is going to be something that we're just going to watch a little snippet from. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Alfred Hitchcock, but he is someone who is very, very well known for making films. He was one of the first guys who did films very well, and he was very theatrical. And he has a very nice little snippet here talking about juxtaposition in film, which in comic books, it's very similar. So we're just going to go ahead and take a look at this.
Now, the third way is what one might call pure cinematics, the assembly of film, and how it can be changed to create a different idea. Now, we have a close-up. Let me show what he sees. Let's assume he saw a woman holding a baby in her arms. Now we cut back to his reaction to what he sees, and he smiles. Now, what is he as a character? He's a kindly man. He's sympathetic. Now, let's take the middle piece of film away, the woman with the child, but leave his two pieces of film as they were. Now we'll put in a piece of film of a girl in a bikini. He looks, girl in a bikini, he smiles. What is he now? The dirty old man. He's no longer the benign gentleman who loves babies. That's the difference. That's what film can do for you.
Or you for it, as it were.
Or comics. It's the same idea. So we talked about kind of creating characters based on what they look like, but you can also kind of create a sense of character based on what they're seeing around, or what we see next to or around them. So if we see, close-up of your character and then something, very sweet, and then back to their reaction is a positive thing, then we think that, oh, they think that lady with the baby is a good thing. Oh, they're so nice and blah, blah, blah. But if we, have them have a neutral face and then they see a murder scene, and then they have a smile and think, oh my gosh, this is a supervillain. He's laughing at somebody dying. So that is kind of what juxtaposition can do. It can help build who your character is based on the things that you choose to show, based on the things you choose to put around them. So think about those kinds of things, whatever kind of story you're going to be telling. Continuity is the next kind of word on our worksheet, and it's how things make sense in sequence. So continuity is the idea that we are seeing kind of things in an event or in a series of events, and we expect them to kind of make sense one to another. So looking at our share, looking at our reading from week 1, we were kind of looking at these 2 series of events where they're kind of making sense in sequence. So like peekaboo, and then she's hiding, and then peekaboo, that makes sense because we know the game peekaboo goes up and down with a towel. Okay, we're guessing that. This series of events of a man walking, is walking, leaning, reaching up, reaching down, and so we think he's maybe doing a series of exercises, but I mean, this is a little more unconnected, right? We don't really have the idea of like maybe what he's looking at, or like why did he turn to face the audience. So it almost feels like these 3 events might be connected, and then these 2 events might be. There's a shift in body placement here that isn't, there's like a little jump. So that's a little bit of a disconnect in the continuity of this series. So continuity is just kind of how things continue or make sense. That's what that word means. It means continue. Then the next word that we have is composition. So we've talked about composition in photographs. We're kind of looking at where things are on the page or in a photograph with the rule of thirds. That was kind of one of the things that we looked at with photographs, was putting things on those crosshairs, not bullseyeing it in the middle. But in comic books, we're not just looking at one panel when we're talking about composition. We're talking about the composition of the whole page. So all these panels together creates the composition, how things are related in space. So we're talking about where they are on the page in relation to other areas. So this peekaboo panel happens above the staccato rhythm exercise panel, okay? So that's the composition of this image. In comics, time equals space, okay? So if you want to make things appear that they are going really fast, you want to put things really close together. So like this eyeball, they're small and they're very close together, okay? So that looks like it's going pretty quickly. And the idea that it's a movie clip with the movie panels on either side, we kind of get the idea that things are moving fast, right? So if you want to speed them up, put them close together. To slow things down, stretch them out. So if instead of having these little eyes kind of going just in this one box, if we had an eye, an eye, an eye, an eye all the way down the whole paper, we would think, oh, this is taking a much longer time for them to open the eye. Like this gesture, we think is probably pretty quick because there's only 2 images, and we probably can assume that it's happening in a very quick manner because they're pretty close together. But if this one was over here and this one was over there, and then we had like a wall of text in between or some other picture, we might imagine that it takes him a little longer to take off his hat. So in comics, if you want to make things appear like they're taking a long time, put the pictures farther apart. If you want to make it seem like it's happening very quickly, put the pictures very close together. A bigger picture implies that it takes longer because it takes more space. So that's kind of our next little, say with me. A picture takes up more space, therefore it probably takes up more time because space equals time in the comic book page, okay? Just like if you're putting them close together, they're taking up less time versus if you spread them apart, they're taking up more time. Things that touch imply that they're connected or they happen one right after the other. So imply connection or events that happen one right after another. And then pictures that are far apart imply that they are disconnected moments. So we probably think that this eye here and this guy taking off the hat, they're not connected moments of time because we've got other stuff happening in between. So we're not going to think that they're, the same event versus, the no, now you die, yeah, because they're close together and because they're kind of happening side by side, we assume they're probably related events. Most of us kind of had this idea where it was probably the axe murderer or the victim here that was saying, yeah. Nobody was like, it's probably a cowboy riding in from the left field. Most people got the idea that that's kind of what the implied questions were asking. Okay, that we are making a guess that it's probably this guy who's screaming because the axe guy has done some things. I had one person make a very good guess that no, it's actually the axe murderer who says, yeah, he stubs his toe, and then he drops the axe on his foot. So something like that. And that's fine too. So pictures that are disconnected imply disconnected moments. Pictures that are touching or are connected imply that the events happen one right after the others. Those are those two things.